All right. Hey, Vikings fans, welcome into another episode of the Skol Hop. I'm Evan.
And I'm Austin.
And we're just a couple of dudes from Iowa. We like drinking beer. And we like talking about the Vikings.
We do.
Skol.
There it is. All right. I had to reach for you a little bit.
You always reach. I kind of just sit back and chill.
It's the whole 90-10. I'm the 90, I guess. Yeah. So we do have a tradition on this podcast. If you're a longtime listener, or even if you just first started last week, you'll know that we have a tradition of only drinking Iowa beers during our podcast. We feature a different Iowa beer from an Iowa brewery every week. And Evan, you brought the beer tonight.
I did. And kind of interesting, I didn't really know when I bought the beer that we'd be talking about beer tonight, or at least we plan to talk about beer tonight. But this is a beer and a brewery that we have not yet featured on the podcast. So this is brand new to us.
Yeah. Not only have we not featured it, I don't think I've ever had their beer at all.
I have not either. So this is like brand spanking new. We are literally drinking the first of probably many of these beers. Not all at once.
Sure.
But yeah, West O is the brewery. It's out of Okoboji, Iowa. West Okoboji to be specific, which is why it's dubbed West O. And I thought, we'd kind of gone away from our wheelhouse beers there for a little bit.
Yeah, I'm an IPA guy. You're an amber guy.
Yeah. And we kind of ventured off the beaten path a little bit for a few episodes there, but we're back on it. We're back on the path. This is their smoked red ale.
Yeah.
So West O from West Okoboji, smoked red ale, and so far, pretty good.
Yeah. I think we both like this one a lot so far. Like you said, we're probably, less than 10 sips into these, but I like it a lot. It definitely, it looks as the name describes it. It's a darker, ambery red beer. Not too heavy on flavor, but in a good way. Yeah, it's got a lot of flavors, but it's not overpowering. I like it a lot.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it, and we'll have some thoughts on it once we've had a few more sips.
Yeah,
at the end of the episode,
for sure. Today's episode is brought to you by Big Top Ventures. To get the best rates on all-inclusive resorts in Mexico and Jamaica, go ahead and send an email to bigtopventuresllc at gmail.com. That is bigtopventuresllc at gmail.com. We'll have that linked in the description for you. It's a good company if you want to go to an all-inclusive in Mexico or Jamaica.
There you go. Well, should we jump in and just give our thoughts on the divisional round of the playoffs this last weekend?
Yeah, so I think I'm finally starting to get over the fact that the Vikings didn't luck their way into the playoffs this year. We've talked about it for a whole year almost. Kirk's injury, team just didn't do what it was supposed to do. The Vikings didn't get in. Boo boo, ha ha. The tears have dried up by now. So I can talk about the playoffs now. Let's just kind of go down. There were only a few games, divisional round. They're starting to ramp up to the end.
Yep. I would say the best result of the weekend was the 49ers beating the Packers.
Yep. As petty as we are Vikings fans. And honestly, a Packers playoff loss, it's not as good as a Vikings playoff win, but it still feels good. There's still some good vibes, good feelings that come from watching the Packers lose in the playoffs to none other than the Niners yet again.
Yeah. The Niners have had their number for quite a while.
Yeah. Kind of like the Vikings have had the Saints number in the playoffs a couple of times, other than, 2009. But yeah, the Niners have seemed to be the Packer killer in the playoffs, and I'm okay with it. When the Packers fans that wanted Rodgers out got their way, and they're so excited, and they finally got the third straight Hall of Famer in Jordan Love, and he still can't beat the Niners in the playoffs. There's only so much crap we can talk, especially this year, because the Vikings didn't get in, and they did beat the Packers once, but they got pummeled by the Packers the second time. But it's still fun to see them lose.
Yeah, we'll always take that. On the other side, though, of the NFC North,
Yeah.
The other NFC North representative in the playoffs, we should say, the Lions took care of business against the Buccaneers.
Yeah, we watched that one together.
We did.
We kind of had a business meeting going on at the time, so I wasn't as 100% eyes glued on the TV.
We weren't locked in, but it was pretty clear, like, from the get-go, the Lions just had it, and the Buccaneers made it a good game.
Yeah, they did. It wasn't a blowout by any means.
No,
Lions 31-23 Buccaneers. So
one-score game. But, yeah, and good for the Lions. We're still going to root for the 49ers probably, I guess.
Yeah,
in the NFC Championship game. But
I've seen the memes that show like the map of the United States and colored in the states and saying who's rooting for who, and it's got like every state blue rooting for the Lions and, you know, California red rooting for the Niners, and I don't think that's accurate at all. I think most Vikings fans are definitely rooting against the Lions. So there's Minnesota. We're Iowa boys, and I'm just going to claim Iowa as Niners fans this game.
Just
so
Minnesota South. That's all we are.
Yeah,
we got
sure.
Minnesota, and then we have South Minnesota.
I mean, that's a little derogatory for Iowa. We're an established state.
All right, that's fair.
We might have been a state before Minnesota. I don't know. History buffs, let us know. If you're going off like I don't know. I just pulled that out of my butt. So
well, I can speak on something that I do know more about, and I would just like to equate Northern Iowa, and it's the reason why I broke tradition today.
Mm-hmm.
So we went to school at UNI. We've got a little bit of UNI insignia behind us here.
See 1, 2 that you can't see. We've featured the Prowl from Single Speed, which is supporting UNI athletes.
So anyways, the point I'm getting to, Northern Iowa is where we went to school. It's basically Minnesota, I would say, in a lot of ways. But there was some history that happened this week. Did I tell you about this?
Oh, Ben Jacobsen?
Yeah. Coach Ben Jacobsen became the winningest coach in Missouri Valley Basketball Conference history, passing the late, great Henry Iba. So that was a big deal. And not only that, but I saw... So the Panthers played at home last night and beat Evansville, and they secured their 200th win in the McLeod Center.
Interesting. And I think that opened up in, 06?
Yeah.
If I remember right.
So...
Shortly before we started as students there.
It wasn't... Well... Yeah, it was probably 05, 06. But yeah, a lot of success for that program under Ben Jacobsen.
Mm-hmm.
Some pretty big wins against Kansas, Texas.
I mean, I've seen
North Carolina.
I've seen our Panthers beat the Hawkeyes in there. North Carolina was the biggest I think I can remember because they were ranked number 1 at the time
at Cedar Falls.
Yeah, that was more than a handful of years ago. But
that's one game I wish I could have been at. Yeah. I was a mile down the road, and I wish I could have been there.
But you just didn't care about the team at that point?
No, I did. I was working.
Sure.
I couldn't get away.
Yeah, you could take a bathroom break.
I watched it.
Yeah.
Anyways, just thought I'd throw that out there.
Nice.
Some interesting facts.
Are we now a UNI Panthers podcast?
We could be.
I'd get pretty bored pretty quick.
I could talk UNI for quite a while, probably.
So when we went there, I was a student employee of the athletic facilities, and I saw quite a few games, probably most of the football and basketball games while we were students. I attended as an employee. So I don't know. I associated them with work, and it wasn't the most fun work. It wasn't bad, but it was okay.
Well, I think we could maybe even equate the Panthers to the Vikings in a lot of ways. Ugh. Because they build your hopes up and then they let you down. I mean,
really do.
Paul Jesperson chucks up a game-winning shot against Texas in, I think it was the round of 32, maybe, or it could have been the first round of the NCAA tournament. Anyways, beat Texas,
Oh, yeah, and then the next week.
David beats Goliath, and then the next week, Texas A&M, UNI has the lead, and blows the lead historically. Like, it was all over SportsCenter the next day.
That might have been like the only 2 minutes of UNI basketball I watched all season.
It was. I watched it on TV,
and they lost epically.
It was so
LeBron James said that he would quit basketball if he had been in that position.
It was like 12 points in 32 seconds or something.
Yeah, it was crazy. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah. Anyways,
we just like to feel bad about our sports teams, don't we? It's like people who like to push bruises, you know?
Yeah.
We just like the pain of feeling bad about our sports teams.
Yeah. UNI football, they're always kind of in it, but then they're not.
I'll never forget. I think my first UNI football game, I was a senior in high school. My eventual college roommate and I, we drove up. We watched UNI in the game before the championship.
Semifinal?
I think. Yeah. UNI hosted, and they were playing the University of Richmond Spiders. And I'll never forget it because all 12 Richmond fans, every time somebody did something good for that team, which ultimately ended up being a lot, that whole corner of that one half a row of fans, they were the loudest people in the stadium. They kept saying, "You are, you are, you are." It might be the second worst cheer in sports.
What's the first?
I think you know, Evan.
Go, Pat, go.
Yes, I just couldn't bring myself to say that. Ugh, I feel dirty for you. Ugh.
Sorry. Wash my mouth out with soap.
So yeah, all that to say, the Niners are going to host the Lions in Santa Clara for the NFC Championship game. And it'll be weird to see an NFC North team in the championship game and not have it be the Vikings or the Packers. I'm glad it's not the Packers. I wish it were the Vikings. I really hope the Lions lose, just because I can't live in a world where the Lions fans get to watch their team in a Super Bowl before I do. Can't do it.
It'll be tough. It will be tough. Let's move on to the AFC because we don't really have too much opinions about that.
No, yeah. I mean,
roll with it. It is what it is.
The team that I think is going to win the Super Bowl is in the AFC, but I guess we'll talk about that. The Ravens beat the Texans 34-10.
Beat down.
It was a beat down. It didn't, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but the Texans never felt like completely out of it the whole time. It felt like they always had a chance to come in, but obviously they didn't. They just, I don't know. It was a good first season for their head coach, first season for their quarterback, a good first season for their, is he a linebacker, the number 3 overall pick. They had a good start, and they could be scary for the next handful of years. But ultimately, I think the Ravens are the team that are going to win the Super Bowl. They never faltered. Lamar Jackson, it's crazy to watch him throw a football. He'll run around, do the Fran Tarkenton, run around in figure eights, and then just kind of like flick his wrist and it goes 90 yards. It's crazy.
He's special.
Yeah, he might be the MVP this year.
Agreed. And then we have the Chiefs and the Bills, and I think there was more to watch off the field, specifically in one particular suite at the Bills Stadium.
Which one are you? I don't.
You know, the one with the famous people in it.
What? Travis Kelce's mom? Mama Kelce?
Also his brother.
Yeah. Hey, you know what?
And his girlfriend.
He made me want to go to a football game and rip off my shirt and shotgun a beer.
Patrick Mahomes' wife was in there too with them all.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was just kind of a star-studded little suite.
And that's all the famous people that were there. That's it. That's
probably
the entire list of famous people that were in the whole stadium that we can talk about.
But it was very entertaining, just to see Jason Kelce take his shirt off, chug a beer. Mm-hmm. I don't even remember where I was. I might have just been at home watching it. And of course, they're going to show shots of Taylor Swift in the suite, like whatever. And they showed a shot of her, and there's just this shirtless dude. And I didn't even watch the whole thing live when he came out of the suite and was, going crazy with Bills fans and whatnot. I saw the shirtless, hairy guy in the back, and I'm like, that has to be Jason Kelce. And then the next day, I just see everything on social media is Jason Kelce. Just like,
yeah, good for him. He didn't hurt anybody. He was just excited. I think he said he was rooting for the Bills just to get at his little brother. But I mean, yeah, good for him. He was. It's kind of weird to say that that's good, wholesome entertainment because he was, partying. He was like Will Ferrell in Old School, just. But yeah, it's fun. I like that. Makes me want to. That's my next Halloween costume. Unless my wife tells me not to.
Or unless it's like 15 degrees and snowing on Halloween next year.
It was. They were in Buffalo. It was probably colder in Buffalo than it ever will be here. Oh, I just jinxed it, didn't I?
Yeah, you might have.
Dang it. All right. Well, it's freezing here, so I just said earlier if it gets above 30 or 40, I'm wearing shorts. That's my rule.
Anyways, the Bills can't get out from underneath the Chiefs.
I'm starting to, forever when people would say, oh, the most cursed team in NFL history has got to be... If they said any team other than the Vikings, Browns. I would just be like, I'd roll my eyes. You don't even know. You don't even know. It's just all the stuff the Vikings have been through just in my lifetime. They have to be the most cursed. But I don't know. The last few years, it's got to be tough to be a consistent Bills fan, right?
Yeah.
Just to be right there, be knocking on the door, and never get past Pat freaking Mahomes. This year, they're saying, oh, he's never had to come to Buffalo. He's never had to play here. And then he does. And
the dude has more playoff wins than the Arizona Cardinals have as a franchise.
Yeah, and they've been around. Does that include all the way? Because I think the Cardinals, their organization,
Chicago.
Yeah, they're one of the 1920s-ish.
Because they started in Chicago, then they moved to St. Louis.
Oh, they started in... No, I think you're right.
I think they started in Chicago.
They did. They started in Chicago.
Moved to St. Louis, and then they ultimately moved to Arizona in the late 70s or 80s.
Yeah. I was thinking, because there's a team that started in Decatur, which is only a couple hours from here. Not even a couple hours from here, right?
Yeah, it's not too far.
But the team that started in Decatur was the Staleys, and they moved to Chicago, and they're now called the Bears.
Yes.
I think their mascot is still named Staley.
Oh, really?
Which is kind of cool.
That is kind of cool. I like history like that.
Yeah.
Well, so given the results of the divisional round, you've come up with some best case, worst case scenarios for Vikings fans in the championship round.
Yeah.
Leading up to the Super Bowl. So tell us about that.
So, mind you, I spent about 30 seconds thinking about this. And I'm a salty Vikings fan. If I can't be happy, I don't want anyone else to be happy. Okay? But fair. Yeah. Well, you know what? I'm going to go out of order. We're going to start with the worst case. We're going to go bottom all the way up.
Go for it.
I think the worst case, because I'm super salty and really petty, the worst case Super Bowl outcome for Vikings fans would be that the Lions win. And just like I said, I can't live in a world where the Lions win a Super Bowl before my Vikings do. I don't want to. That sounds awful.
Can I interject with a little bit of devil's advocacy?
I'll hear it.
What if we just let them have it, as painful as that will be, and then they slump next year, and the Vikings are the better team in the North?
Yeah, but that's kind of been the situation with the Packers, where the Packers were more often the better team, but they got one in 2010. In recent memory, they got the one in the 90s too, but they got one in 2010, and then I hate to bash people. Those Packer fans have been just unbearable for almost 2 decades now, or a decade and a half.
They don't really have the recent championships to show for it.
No, but they've been there, and then you get Aaron Rodgers drinking the purple Kool-Aid and just wearing a smug smile all the time. And yeah, he hasn't been a Packer for a while, but I feel like it's already happening with Lions fans right now. They're already becoming big-headed, hot shots, and that's so unfair of me. I'm sorry if you're a Lions fan, because I'm sure more Lions fans than not are actual cool people, just like more Vikings fans than not are actual cool fans and stuff. But it's still dumb. I can respect your opinion.
I'm just saying the Super Bowl slump is a real thing. teams put all their chips on the table to try and win it all, and then the next year they can't pay everybody to come back. And
it's kind of what the Vikings are looking like right now.
And yeah. And that could be the Vikings next year. I don't know. And maybe it works out. Maybe, maybe we're sitting here a year from now and the Vikings are the ones in an NFC championship game.
You heard it here, folks. Evan just predicted the Vikings in the NFC championship game next year.
We're just spitballing here. We're just spitballing.
So yeah, that's my worst case. Do you agree or no?
I agree. I think it is worst case because it just puts an enormous amount of pressure on the Vikings to get it right this offseason. Mm-hmm. And even if Detroit doesn't slump, the Vikings just have to get sharp. They have to figure it out, and they've got to start with the quarterback situation. They've got to square that up now. That has to be figured out ASAP, and then they got to move on to those other big contracts. Danielle Hunter, JJ, we've talked at length about all of that already, and the season's not even over, technically. And then they got to move forward in free agency and the draft, get the right guys on the team, and try to put something together again to go farther than we went this year and see if we can win the division against the Lions. So, yeah, I do think the Lions win. It puts an enormous amount of pressure on the rest of the division, not just the Vikings, but the Bears and the Packers as well to pony up and be successful next year.
And you could argue at this moment the Vikings are the least equipped to be able to revamp their team and attack the Lions as the team to beat.
I think they appear to be.
Yeah, every team looks different, in August than they do in February, but
well, I think I guess what I'm trying to say is like they appear to the public eye to be the least equipped, but I think deep down the Vikings have a lot of pieces there.
Oh yeah.
And you make a few key acquisitions in free agency, you draft the right guys, you keep your coaching staff mostly intact.
I mean, Brian Flores is still a Vikings coach, and I haven't even heard about him interviewing as a head coach anywhere, which is crazy.
Yeah, and that whole thing has kind of seemed to die down. And I've seen some things that are saying, well, he's kind of being blackballed by the NFL, or at least the teams in the NFL, for everything that happened with the Dolphins organization. And
yeah, and my comeback to that is he had interviews last year.
True.
It's just, so I don't know if it's...
The market is also just really competitive, I think. And I mean, shoot, at the moment we're recording this, Bill Belichick doesn't even have a job.
Yeah. And Jim Harbaugh, he just got hired.
I saw that.
Hours ago, yeah.
That was the latest breaking news today. Jim Harbaugh getting hired by the San Diego Chargers.
Thoughts and prayers.
Not San Diego, sorry. Los Angeles Chargers.
Thoughts and prayers to friend of the show, Forrest, who... Forrest, I love you, man. You can only be so sad. And you're not pouting as far as I can tell, but you can only be so sad right now because you're still on a championship high. Like, he is as big of a Michigan fan as we are Vikings fans, and they just won their Super Bowl. They just won the championship. Yeah. He is ecstatic, and I'm happy for him. But, yeah, be a little sad for losing your coach, but they proved they can do it without Jim Harbaugh in the few games he wasn't there. So the Chargers are in a good spot, I think, and Michigan will be just fine.
Agreed. Anyways, on the AFC side...
Yeah.
Worst case scenario.
So I think, I think this is the third worst case, or the second worst case, only because it's Ravens win the Super Bowl. And it's only because this offseason, Lamar Jackson, there was a certain amount of time where he was signed to, not an offer sheet. The Ravens had, dang it, what is it? I don't remember the term. But they had put a tender on him that anybody could approach him for a contract, and he could sign any contract with any team, but then the Ravens got the first right of refusal. So if the Vikings or any other team had come to him and signed him for a 10-year, $250+ million contract, something like he ultimately got with the Ravens could have been the first ones to say, you know what, yeah, we'll do it for that exact contract, and they would have had him. Or they could have said, yeah, nope, have fun being a Viking. And then he'd have been a Viking, and the Vikings would have had to send, I think, 2 first-round picks. So any team could have done that. And when you're talking about who could be the eventual MVP of the league this year, to have him be that close to available is kind of sucks. Even with, I mean, we're looking at hindsight. Kirk didn't finish the year, he was injured. So it would have been really nice to have an MVP-like quarterback for the whole year instead of for half the year.
Well, and the other thing that really is salt in the wound for every other team except for the Ravens is that the Ravens picked him up at 32.
Oh, yeah. They did what the Vikings did for Teddy Bridgewater. Yep. They traded back to the 32nd. They traded back into the first round for the 32nd pick and drafted him there. He was available. The entire league has had multiple opportunities to sign him.
Yeah. The Vikings could have signed him.
Yeah.
And didn't.
It would have cost a lot, and he probably would have still, even if he had signed an offer sheet with another team, he probably still would have gotten picked up by the Ravens would have matched it. And then also, or in that scenario, they wouldn't have gotten draft picks, but they probably still would have matched it. So it's all probably a moot point. But yeah, that was a weird thing that happened over the offseason. It was more than a few days that he was available. Like any team could have negotiated with him.
Well, and it was it seemed to me somewhat unprecedented that a team would do that with a really, really good player. Like, I don't know. I don't remember that type of thing happening where it wasn't your true unrestricted free agency. It was just like, oh yeah, good luck. And if you're still available and we have some money, we might bring you back, but you know, we'll see you later, you know.
Yeah, I remember.
It wasn't like that.
I remember thinking like the Ravens must be trying to let other teams do their negotiating for them. Almost like, and I don't know if any of this is true. I don't really have any reason to believe it, but it's almost like the Ravens had offered him a few times and he was thinking like, no, I'm worth more. No, I can probably get a better deal with somewhere else. And they were finally like, you know what? See what you can get. And then when the Ravens ultimately were the best offer, it's like he was content. Like, okay, yeah, that's what I'm worth. And here we go. I don't know. That's all a guess. But that's just kind of feels like what happened. Yeah,
definitely interesting. And I don't know, even though it might be in your eyes a worst case scenario for the Vikings.
Not the ultimate worst.
But the second worst.
Yeah.
I would still be okay seeing the Ravens win a Super Bowl.
I mean, yeah, and I still think they're the team that's going to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a lot of respect for John Harbaugh, too. I think he's a great coach. He's already won it before. And, I mean, could do it again.
Yeah, you never hear bad... I can't think of a time you've heard bad things about John Harbaugh. Jim? I keep mixing their names up.
John is the Ravens coach. Jim is now the Chargers coach.
I always remember hearing... I don't remember if it was on a podcast or just like KFAN, but Matt Burke, former Viking who then went on to play for the Ravens and win a Super Bowl with them. I remember him talking about it and how he kind of like went to visit the Ravens because he wanted to put the fire under the Vikings' butt to give him a contract. And on that visit, he kind of left there thinking like, dang, I gotta play for this guy. Like I have to play for Harbaugh now. Like he's just such a good dude. So that's... and I don't know how many years ago it was that Matt Burke was saying that, but that's kind of what I base my opinion on Harbaugh is like, seems like a good dude. So yeah, be weird to see 2 Harbaugh championships in just a matter of a few weeks, but.
Well, we've already had a Harbaugh Super Bowl.
Oh, the Harbaugh, yeah.
They faced each other and the lights went out. That was kind of an odd game.
Yeah, that was. I think, didn't we watch that at we watched that in college at the church, huge bringing the couches event.
Yeah, we probably did.
Yeah,
did. Good times.
Yeah. All right. Better case scenarios for Super Bowl outcomes. I think probably the second best is a Chiefs win. I'm not rooting for this just because I don't like it when teams like do the Patriots and they always go every year and they always win every year. It seems boring. It's like, my team hasn't been at all. Like, give us a chance. But hey, if you're good, then you're going to earn those opportunities. I feel like the Vikings early in the year played okay against the Chiefs. Chiefs beat the Vikings still, but they played okay. It was kind of the first time I thought, like, hey, maybe the Vikings aren't terrible this year. So there'd be a little bit of a moral victory. Like, hey, my team played right up there with the eventual Super Bowl winner.
And to be fair, the Chiefs they took their lumps this year. I mean, it wasn't a gravy year for the Chiefs. Like, they struggled, and there were times, I think a lot of times, where we saw Patrick Mahomes pouting and
the whole
chewing out the
offsides
refs
call,
all of it. It was kind of an odd season for the Chiefs. It was not cupcakes and rainbows for them. Like I said, they took their lumps. They really had to fight their way in, and they've proven that they're a really good team.
Yeah.
So,
and then there's also the like conspiracy, which I don't believe in, but that the NFL would love to have the team that the world's biggest pop star is associated with in the championship game and win everything, because apparently that would make a lot of money for everybody. I don't believe in that conspiracy theory. I don't think there's anything to it. If anything, it's like that'd be kind of nice, but I mean, I don't think it's going to make anything happen. This isn't the NBA. The refs don't completely control the game.
Best case scenario overall, though.
Yeah, I think of the four options, for me, the best case is the Niners. The Vikings did, beat them. And this is not me saying, the Vikings should have won the Super Bowl because they beat the Niners. Like, I'm not that delirious. But the Vikings did beat them. It was at a time of the Vikings season when things really started to look up. I mean, you're starting to think like, okay, they're finally waking up. They're finally doing something. This season's not lost. And they did have a few games where it was good. And I think the Niners was a catalyst in that run of games before, the eventual terrible injury. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like the Niners have been beat down a lot lately. Yeah, they've been successful, but to me, for a lot of reasons, people root for the Lions this year. That's kind of why I'm rooting for the Niners.
Well, the Niners definitely took their lumps towards the end of the season too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, some of those big perennial powerhouse teams that have been so good for the last couple of years entered the season and struggled.
Mm-hmm.
The Chiefs, the Eagles, the Niners. I mean, nobody had a 16-0 or a 15-1 type season. It wasn't just this magical, glorious, we ran over everybody that we played. It was, we won some. I mean, the Eagles were 9-0 or 10-0 to start the season, and then
I think they started, it was either 10-1 or 10-2. And I said this
like
last week or the week before. They're the first team ever to start off with 10 or more wins and not reach 12 wins in a season.
Yeah. Crazy.
But yeah,
crazy.
there was a lot of parity in this season.
And the NFL is built that way, and that's what keeps people coming back, I think. It keeps us engaged, it keeps us interested, and it gives us a lot of stuff to talk about, because if one team is dominating everything, it's just like, well, shoot. Can't beat them. I mean, that was the way it was with the Patriots for so long. It was like,
I was like, okay.
Gosh, hope you don't have to play the Patriots this year. Hope you don't see Tom Brady and Bill Belichick this year, because you're probably going to lose.
Mm-hmm. And to the point that, if your team beat the Patriots that year, it was like, oh, wow. Hey, the Vikings might be good. They actually, beat the Patriots and Bill Belichick in Foxborough. Like, yeah. So yeah, those are my personal thoughts on worst and best case scenarios for Super Bowl outcomes.
I agree with you.
Okay.
I was lazy and didn't make a list, but I'm just going to steal yours. I like it. I agree with it, and I can back that 100%. So,
and ultimately, we're just a couple of dudes. So
yeah, We're just
what does it matter what our opinions are?
Drinking beer and talking sports. That's what we do. To switch gears a little bit.
Yeah.
We'd recently mentioned Northern Iowa history being made. But we're a Vikings podcast, and so we focus mostly on Minnesota sports. Some Minnesota sports history happened.
I'm going to stop you right there.
Or is happening.
Yeah. So, yes, Minnesota sports history. That's fine and dandy. I would argue it's Quad City baseball sports history is happening right now. Happened.
It hasn't happened? Or is it...
The induction ceremony hasn't happened, but, like, he's in.
Okay. All right.
So we're talking about Joe Mauer, famed career-long Minnesota Twin, but he
Catcher and first baseman.
He started his professional baseball career with the Quad Cities River Bandits.
Right here.
Yeah.
Right, pretty much right in our locale. Actually, I think somewhere in this bookshelf, I have a Quad City River Bandits card of Joe Mauer signed.
No way.
By Joe Mauer. I might have to dig that out.
You're going to have to break that out. That's an Instagram-worthy picture to blast out there.
When we're done, remind me.
Yeah.
And I'll see if we can dig that out. I think, because when I was a kid, I think when I was probably, like, we'd just moved here to the Quad Cities when I was 10, and that's when we met. Somewhere in those first couple of years, I did a kids baseball camp.
Okay.
With the River Bandits, and he was one of the players there.
Interesting. That's awesome.
Yeah, early 2000s, and it might have been like he was rehabbing here, like he might have been injured and just rehabbed. That was back when the River Bandits were a Twins affiliate.
Yeah, they've bounced around. Because what are they, the single A, or I don't even know.
They've been a Cardinals affiliate. They've been a Royals affiliate. I think they've even been a Cubs affiliate at times.
Interesting.
So yeah,
I know right now is it the Royals?
I think it's the Royals
because they were recently Astros, right?
Possibly.
But
I don't know.
I think they're the Royals currently. But yeah, they used to be a Twins affiliate for a while.
Yeah. So anyways, we've not directly stated it maybe, but Joe Mauer, catcher and first baseman for the Minnesota Twins, has been nominated and will be inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Yeah, he's a Hall of Famer, which is crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that crazy. People argue, did he deserve it? Did he not? I'm not a big enough baseball fan to even entertain that argument. All I know is he's a Hall of Famer officially. So
I watched a fair amount of Twins baseball as a kid, especially going through like camps, like I just mentioned. And I would say I was a fairly big fan of Joe Mauer. Like,
yeah,
he was the Twins franchise.
I mean, yeah,
it was Joe Mauer and Justin Morneau for several years. So yeah, I think he's deserving. Unfortunately, they never put it all together and won a World Series while he was there, but
thankful that he was a Twin the whole time, and the Yankees never tried to, or never successfully, snagged him away. Yeah. But it is kind of cool. You don't see that a lot anymore, especially in baseball. A guy's spending their whole careers with a team. Usually at one point, money doesn't work out if they're good enough. Money doesn't work out for a single team to pony up everything, or for whatever reason, guys usually bounce around a little bit. So it is really cool to see a really good guy, and apparently a really good dude, like a solid dude.
Just wholesome. Yeah. Yep. Just, I mean, he's a guy you'd want your kids to look up to. And,
So all that to say, congrats, Joe Mauer. You're in the Hall of Fame. You'll be in Cooperstown forever. We know your heart really lies with the Quad Cities, but all that to say, let's look at the Vikings. So the Vikings currently have one guy who is currently a finalist to be inducted in the next round of Hall of Fame inductees.
Jared Allen.
And I think the announcement for the 2024 class of NFL Hall of Famers comes out sometime during the Super Bowl week, the week after the Pro Bowl and leading up to the Super Bowl. So we'll find out then. I think this is his fourth time being a finalist. And I saw he did an interview with the Vikings this week, and he kind of mentioned like, yeah, I wish he could count these multiple times of being a finalist, kind of like you can count Pro Bowls. Like, oh yeah, he's so good. He was a 4-time finalist for the Hall. But then he also kind of said that like it kind of gets sad after a certain point, like, oh, he can't get in for whatever reason. But he had a good lighthearted thought process about it. But I think he's worthy, definitely. Jared Allen, I think he's definitely worthy to be in. He should be in. He never got a ring. I think it's kind of dumb, but that's I think that's the holdup on him, is that he never got the ring. He played in the Super Bowl with the Panthers, but that was the year they lost to the Broncos. But yeah, spent more of his career with the Vikings than anyone else. I think he should be in. We got to witness him gallop into US Bank Stadium on that horse when he was inducted into the Vikings Ring of Honor, which is really cool.
Yeah, I think he's deserving for sure.
Yeah.
I think, he did a lot in his career. And he's also just a good guy.
Seems like it, yeah. He had a rocky point, especially at the end of his Chiefs career.
Yeah.
But it does seem like he's a solid guy. Like
he seemed to turn it around and really get his stuff together. So I don't know. I root for the guy.
Yeah, me too.
We got to watch him, I would say, during his prime.
Oh, yeah.
As a Viking. I mean, he was just a beast. And yeah. So, and then the cherry on top for us was watching him being inducted into the Ring of Honor live in person, which was a lot of fun.
So I'll never forget. I think the year I'm always confused on this. He either tied or just fell short of the single season sack record. But that year, I'm pretty sure was the year the Vikings went 3-13. And there was a certain point when you could tell, like, the Vikings were not doing anything. They were terrible. Coach was going to get fired. Like, it was bad. They definitely weren't making the playoffs. It was a lost year. But there was a point where you could just, every defensive play you watched him, because he like had fire in his eyes. He was gonna get that record no matter what, and that's all he cared about. And I'm diminishing his priorities, but it just seemed so obvious that like the only thing he wanted to do on every single play was sack the quarterback. And it was hilarious because there were some plays where it's like he didn't even realize the quarterback threw it 5 seconds ago and he's still trying to get to the quarterback. But yeah, he was fun to watch. He was a lot of fun. I think it'd be cool to have prime Jared Allen on this Vikings team. That'd be a lot of fun. On the other side of Daniil Hunter, that'd be crazy.
Yeah, that would be amazing. You've got a handful of other names on this list, potential future Hall of Famers. For sake of time, because I would like to talk about beer here. Who are your top two?
Yes.
And maybe like current players excluded, because you do have some current players on the list that I think are deserving eventually. But they're still currently in the league. Top two. Who do you got? Who's after Jared Allen?
Yeah.
Who's next into the Hall?
Yeah. So, man, current players excluded. There's some good names on this list. But yeah, this is assuming Jared Allen makes it in, even if he doesn't get there this year. I think Jim Marshall, an original Purple People Eater. I'm sorry. He definitely needs to be in, I think. Yeah, he didn't have all the sack numbers, and he wasn't the highest performing Purple People Eater, but he definitely needs to be in there. And another one, I think, and this may be a little surprising, but I definitely think Antoine Winfield.
It's not surprising to me.
When he came into the Vikings, he came in when the Vikings were not that great. Definitely in kind of a rebuilding time. Couldn't find a quarterback. That was a dark years of Vikings quarterbacks. He was a big name free agent, probably only came because of the money. But he played. He played his heart out. It was fun to watch him. Little in size in comparison to other players on the field, but sure tackler. He definitely was a bright spot for a lot of years on the Vikings defense, and it just felt like his career with the Vikings just kind of ended. But I think, and I don't even know his career numbers, interceptions, sacks, whatever. I think just it feels like he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. So those are mine too. Jim Marshall, sorry I stole it, and Antoine.
No, I think those are good. So I'll take one from farther back to start.
Okay.
I would take Chuck Foreman.
Oh, yeah.
You've got him on here. And yeah, I think he's deserving. Great running back. But a little more recently in the same position, Adrian Peterson.
Oh, and he's, to me, I don't think he's eligible yet because you got to be out of the league for 5 years. I think that's the only reason.
Was he active at all this year?
No, I don't think he's played since 21.
Okay. So it's been a few years.
Yeah. All of 22 and all of 23 so far.
Okay.
I don't know if he's officially come out and said, like, yeah, I'm retired, but he's one, controversy aside, when he does officially retire, he'll sign a one-day contract with the Vikings. And he'll be in. I think numbers alone, he'll be in. Because he's, the third or fourth highest running back or rushing yards in league history or something like that. I should know this. But yeah.
He's up there.
Even the fact that his post-Vikings career, which he bounced around a lot, he played for the Saints, the Cardinals, he was with the Lions,
wasn't he with the Commanders?
The Redskins. They weren't even the Commanders yet, or even I think the football team yet. I think they were still just the Redskins.
The football team.
I think he played. I don't know. Definitely the Seahawks for a minute. He bounced around quite a bit.
He was around, yep.
But he had a couple good seasons in Washington, like I think 1,000-yard season there too. So he still showed that he had something in the tank post-Vikings career. And yeah, I don't think it's hard to argue that he should be in.
Yeah. So, I mean, typical me fashion, I'm going to pick the offensive players over the defensive players.
Yeah, they're more exciting to watch.
Yeah, that should be a good. We'll do a Vikings Players Hall of Fame episode. I think that could warrant a whole episode. Oh yeah,
maybe a shorter episode, but yeah.
Yeah, I'd have to do a little research because there are some guys in the hall that I didn't watch play.
Yeah,
so I'd have to read up on them a little bit. But, anyways, you had one more idea for a segment tonight, and I liked this idea a lot. Mm-hmm. Like when I first saw your text when I was at work this morning, I'm like, yes, let's do that. So we haven't done this really at all, but I think this is a great time to do it. Let's talk about all the beer that we've featured on our podcast so far.
Yeah, and not even just all the beer that we've featured, but as the Skol hop, we've never really been to a brewery as the Skol hop. We've kind of been to one for like a business type meeting chat, just you and me, but we've never officially been the Skol hop is visiting blah 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 brewery.
Right, and you could argue that our podcast kind of started in some of these breweries.
Oh, yeah. That's true.
I mean, if you're out there listening or watching to us, drinking Iowa beer and sitting around talking about the Vikings, this started because we were going to local breweries, drinking beer and talking about the Vikings. Oh, yeah. And one day we were just like,
let's record this.
Oh, hey, let's do an episode, let's stick some microphones in front of us and see what happens. And here we are, 24 episodes in doing just that.
24 of many, 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 many more.
Having a lot of fun doing it.
Oh, yeah.
So.
But yeah, I figured we could go down the list of breweries we'd like to visit as the Skol hop. Maybe it's just you and me going there drinking some beers. Maybe we record an episode at the brewery, talk to a brewer. We are Vikings focused, but also Iowa beer focused. And I think maybe the off season is a good time that we could feature some of these breweries, some of these beers, and maybe this is where we can start focusing on the first few breweries we'd like to visit.
Absolutely. I agree. So, we've had a lot of beer. I mean,
yeah, we have.
To be 24 episodes in, we've tried a lot, and we've never doubled up. We've never, for example, if we had Toppling Goliath Pseudo Sue on an episode.
The best beer, I think.
Pretty good beer.
One of my favorites of all time.
It's up there for sure. But we featured that beer early on, and we've not featured it again. We've had some Pseudo Sues.
Oh, yeah.
personally off air,
Many.
but we've never had another one on air, meaning we've tried a lot of different Iowa brewed beer. So I think the brewery, just looking off of this list, because you compiled this for us and I appreciate this.
Yeah.
The brewery that we featured the most has been Big Grove.
Yeah.
Out of Iowa City. Right?
So I'd love to go as the Skol Hop to Big Grove and sit. They've got their Iowa City location. They've got a really cool inside space and a really, really cool outside space, like multiple intimate, like picnic table and or fireplace sitting areas. They've got a solid outside space. I've been there, I guess, twice. I'd love to go again. And they're only about an hour-ish drive from where we are right now.
Not too far.
I can honestly say, I've only ever had a couple of bad beers ever. And none of those quote-unquote bad beers have ever been Big Grove beers for me. We featured the West Eddy in episode 1, the Arms Race in 16, Birch the Bear last week in our episode 23.
Brown Bear.
Birch the Brown Bear, as the Skol Hop is going to call it, but it's officially Birch the Bear.
It's a brown beer, so it should be Brown Bear.
Yeah. Locally, they're an easy beer to get brewery to get a hold of their beers. They're really good. Big Grove. Let's come record a live episode there. I'd love it.
Yeah. It'd be a lot of fun. I would do it.
Yeah. Another one, I've been here once. I don't know if you've ever been to Confluence in Des Moines. We've had one of their beers on the podcast, episode 5. It was the Extinction event. I'm realizing there's a few varieties of the Extinction event, and I wish I remembered which variety we had on the episode. But yeah, I remember when I went there, it was really good. I was there with friend of the show, Forrest. It was a great time. Another one the Skol Hop should visit.
I'll admit I have not been to a lot of breweries outside of my locale.
Yeah, and that's I'm challenging the Skol Hop. Let's get out to some.
Yeah. Well, now that we've got a little money in the bank,
yeah, we got a sponsorship.
We can expense that. We can write that off
to some degree. That sponsorship will only stretch so far at this point. But yeah, I think I would have a blast if we did a whole summer of just traveling Iowa, and if we even don't record, just visiting these breweries. I think that would be my ideal summer.
Well, I have the summers off because I'm a teacher.
Yeah.
So we're going to need you to work on that and get that figured out with your employer.
I'm a government employee that earns a lot of leave, so we could probably figure something out.
All right. Well, we'll coordinate that. We've already mentioned Toppling Goliath, Pseudo Sue. We've had that. That was episode 4, based out of Decorah. I would love to go to Decorah.
Oh my gosh.
I've never even been to Decorah. I've been in the northeast part of the state. Actually, I don't know if I've ever told you this, but our 2nd anniversary, my wife and I went to...
So not your and my 2nd anniversary?
No, not our 2nd anniversary.
No, okay.
My wife and I's 2nd anniversary. Okay. She's upstairs somewhere. She's probably sleeping.
She's listening right now. Hi.
Hey, babe. We went to DeSoto, Wisconsin, which is right across the river.
Dude.
From like it's close to Decorah.
You went into enemy territory?
We did. They had a sweet Airbnb though, and it was in a train car. It was in a caboose.
Sure.
It was awesome.
Sure. Was it made of cheese?
No.
I'm sorry. Keep going.
There's a lot of things I like about Wisconsin.
No, I do too.
Beer, cheese, fishing. There's a lot of good stuff in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
But anyways, I would love to go back to that area and go to Decorah specifically and go to Toppling Goliath.
Yeah.
That would be like, if we're going to do a brewery tour like you've already proposed, and now that you've said it and we're recording, we have to do it.
You know what? We should tag every one of these breweries.
Yes.
And this is our wish list, this whole list. And let me reiterate before we go any further, this list is not a ranking. It's not a top 10.
Because we know 1 to 10. You don't like rankings.
I just like, if you're in, you're in. So far, this list...
Seeds don't matter to you.
Yeah, you're in. And this is the first breweries we want to officially visit as the Skol Hop.
So let me just finish my thought. Mm-hmm. If we do a tour, and if we mention all these breweries, and if you're out there and you are a manager or even just an employee at a brewery, I would like to start at Toppling Goliath. I think that would be awesome.
All right.
Toppling Goliath, Decorah, Iowa. We're coming for you first, and then we're going to go everywhere else after that.
Sounds good. And if you want to cross over and get some curds and I don't know what else they have.
They've got some good beer over there in Wisconsin.
Yeah, but we don't need it. We need the Iowa beers. So you can cross the border and get some cheese curds all you want. I'll stay at Toppling Goliath, and then you can come pick me up afterwards. Another one, really close to home, Green Tree.
Yeah, Green Tree, not really widely distributed.
No,
I don't think distributed at all unless you visit their brewery. You can buy some crowlers, so to speak. And we featured some of that on episode 20, was it?
Yeah, we had the River Bottom X.
Yes, another red.
Yeah.
So good stuff. Really like it. So you've got this list of top breweries or best breweries in Iowa. So as we flip over to number 5 on the list, even though you don't believe in rankings.
No, these are all good.
You have Alluvial Brewing, which, fun fact, I've actually been to Alluvial. I don't think I've told you
Really?
that. Yeah.
I had honestly, and I'm sorry, Alluvial, I've never heard of them until today.
I've been there in the flesh.
Oh.
I was in Ames for a training for work. I was in a hotel for a week by myself and just took it upon myself, like, I'm going to find good beer around here. And Alluvial came up and I made the trip. It's a little outside of Ames, not far, kind of off the beaten path, kind of out on the outskirts of Ames, and really good beer. And a really cool, just kind of like farmhousey vibe out in the country, so to speak. So if we could get our hands on some Alluvial beer, I would definitely feature it on an episode, and we should definitely try to make it there even if we haven't featured it on an episode. It's good stuff.
I mean, I'm serious. If it's on this list, I want to visit it. But yeah, we have never featured any of their beers on the podcast yet, but we definitely will. I mean, eventually we're going to have to. We're going to hit every brewery in Iowa and get our hands on every Iowa brewed beer, even if we have to make it ourselves. Forrest, I'm talking to you right now. But yeah, so yeah, anything on this list, I'm down to go.
Next up, Peachtree. We had their Red Rambler, another red ale, of course, out of Knoxville, Iowa. I don't even know where Knoxville is, but I would go.
Yeah, it's in our state. It can only be so far away.
Yep.
I have driven to very far away parts of the state. Shout out Belle Plaine, and it's some of those are hard to get to. Not hard, but they take a while.
Not that far away.
Not Belle Plaine. What am I thinking of?
I mean, know. If you go to like Council Bluffs, we're talking about the opposite end of the state from where we live right now.
No, I said the wrong city. I was thinking of another one, and I said Belle Plaine, and I'll never remember. It's not even worth wasting the digital film of this
south
podcast.
Probably somewhere west.
One of Miranda's friends, my friend, lived there for a few years after college, and
Sioux City.
No, it's not a name that I had never heard of before or since. They don't live there anymore. This is terrible. We almost need to cut all this out for fear of these people listening.
You got some research to do, my friend.
Chelsea and Tad, I'll say it. They lived in this city, and it may not exist. Like, this may have been a full joke, and the GPS drove me around in circles for
Have you been
12
there?
hours. Yeah, like twice, 2 or 3 times.
How long did it take you to get there?
Oh, man. I mean, I think it would have been a shorter trip to go to Omaha, to be honest, with the way that it takes
like 4 hours, right, to get to Omaha?
No, it's like 5 or 6.
Oh, okay.
5.5. Yeah.
So they had to have been either in northwest or southwest Iowa.
It was the
guess.
part of Iowa where farm fields start having to like, they're a little hilly. This is so worthless to this whole podcast until we almost need to, like, once we're done recording, save this spot and Google it and then splice it in. Like, hey, this is Evan, and we figured out that it's
found it.
Yep. And it's still, even then, wouldn't be worth it. Like, the listeners are bored right now. I'm not 33 and I'm having an old age brain fart.
The next brewery on the list, fortunately for you, is one that we both have a good amount of experience with. That would be Single Speed Brewing out of Waterloo.
Yeah.
We featured 2 of their beers, actually 2 weeks in a row. Episode 17, we had Panther Prowl, which was a beer featuring the Panthers, our alma mater. And we also had their Worldwide Hazy IPA the week after. And it actually didn't start in Waterloo. It started in Cedar Falls.
Good old CF.
Which is where UNI is located.
Tigers.
And Waterloo's right next door. They've expanded, took over the old Wonder Bread factory in downtown Waterloo. And they've really kind of made themselves a staple in the Waterloo Cedar Falls community there, and they've distributed. You can get their beer down here in the Quad Cities now, and I would expect in most major places in the state of Iowa and perhaps even outside of the state. I don't know.
Yeah. A beer of theirs that I was the most I've been pleasantly surprised by any beer ever has been their Tip the Cow, which is, I think, an espresso stout.
Yep.
And I love coffee, but it's got to be, for me, it's got to be black and it's got to be hot. And usually like the frappuccinos and the everything cold coffee drinks, I'm not into. I like coffee ice cream. But anyways, this espresso stout, it was in my beer advent calendar and I grabbed it. I like Single Speed, and I wasn't sure if I was going to like it. But first sip, I was like, "Ooh, this is good." It was an espresso, and it's delicious.
You realize that you've had that beer with me.
You said that, but I didn't remember. And that means I'm a bad friend.
We had that beer together at Single Speed in Cedar Falls before they had even expanded to Waterloo. We had Tip the Cow, their coffee stout. Really before Single Speed kind of grew to be what it is today. And really before we grew into more or less the beer enjoyers that we are. We were still relatively new to the beer world. And I remember telling you, like, yeah, it's good. Because I'm a big coffee guy.
Yeah,
love coffee.
You're why I like coffee.
I turned you into a Vikings fan and a coffee lover. You're welcome.
Skol.
But I remember telling you, like, yeah, it's good, but I don't think I could do more than one. Because it was rich, at least back then. And I don't know if they've adapted their recipe to kind of adapt to the masses or not. But I haven't had a Tip the Cow in a long time. Maybe we should feature one.
You know what? You said Toppling Goliath might be one of the first breweries you want to go to as a Skol hop. My first one is definitely Single Speed.
Have you been to the Wonder Bread factory in Waterloo?
I don't think so.
Dude, you need to go. That place is cool.
Yeah?
It's the old Wonder Bread factory, and they left a lot of the old, like, factory vibe in place. It's a cool place. I went there a bunch when I lived there.
All right, Toppling Goliath and Single Speed. You guys are at the top of our list of Skol hop visiting breweries. We want to come. We want to check out your space and drink your fresh beers on tap.
Summer 2024.
We're doing it. If we do nothing else, those breweries we're going for.
We're coming for you. All right. A couple more beers, handful of more beers on the list here.
Well, breweries.
Breweries, yeah. Exile. We had
a good one.
We had their Oktoberfest pretty early on. I probably jumped the gun a little bit on the old Oktoberfest.
Oktoberfest is a season that is not limited to OC October. This is okay October, okay?
And it's always okay to have an Oktoberfest.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
I don't know. If it's July 4th, I'm going to need some like water and maybe like a summer shandy or something. But dang it, I can't say it. We need to cut that out because I just shouted out a Scotty beer.
No Liney's on this podcast.
Although Summer Shandy's delicious.
Summer Shandy, I like Summer Shandy.
Oh my gosh,
sure.
yeah. So yeah, Exile, I believe I've been there. Forrest, if you're listening, when you get to this point, text me and remind me if this is one of the ones that we went to on our Des Moines brewery tour. Because there was a certain point that I will need Forrest to remind me if we have been to those locations. Although, to be fair, there's another certain point where Forrest will need our wives to remind us of the locations that we've
Note to self, we'll pack some liquid IV and some Gatorade for this trip.
But if it's what I'm thinking of, Exile was a lot of fun. And all of these I want to go to, but we should definitely check that one out too.
I have not been to Exile. The next one I also have not been to, Millstream. In Amana, which is close to Iowa City, so close-ish to Big Grove. Probably another, I don't know, 20 minutes, half hour.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of attending Oktoberfest in the Amana colonies this year, and I've had a few Millstream beers, and another one. I've never been disappointed. If anything, I've been more pleasantly surprised with Millstream beers. They're so good, and their Oktoberfest is top notch. It's amazing. It's really, really, really good. And I had probably 2 full steins of the Oktoberfest during that day.
And Millstream's Schildbrau Amber.
We featured here.
Had that here as well. And oldest beer in Iowa.
Oldest
longest
oldest established?
Currently brewed.
Sure. Okay. Oldest active?
Yes. 1985 or somewhere around there.
Which seems kind of young as far as oldest, but yeah.
With the brewing laws in Iowa the way they were, and you can go back to, I think it was episode 13, where I kind of gave a mini history lesson on beer brewing in Iowa. That's the one. That is the OG craft beer in Iowa. So there you go. And then
we've got a few breweries that we could like break up different sections of tours if we wanted to.
Might have to go like geographical, like
so there's a
north,
couple
south,
Des Moines
east, west.
area ones, a couple Iowa City-ish area ones. This last one that we have listed, Fire Trucker Brewery in Ankeny, so that Des Moines area.
Yep.
We had their Iowa IPA 2 episodes ago.
Yeah, just a few weeks ago.
I botched my pour on the TikTok video, and they lightheartedly gave me some grief about that. But then they said we should come check out their brewery and have some ginger beers. I think they specifically pointed out.
Yeah. And they told you that they would teach you how to pour a beer too.
I'll take any tips. Hey, I'm always trying to get better, so in any aspect of life. So teach me how to pour the best beer. But I'd love to go to Fire Trucker Brewery. Their logo looks really cool. We've had a couple of their beers, only one on the podcast, but let's make that a priority too.
Yeah. Well, sounds like maybe we need to go to Des Moines and a few other places across the state, check some boxes, and yeah.
Yeah, I have an honorable mention.
Okay.
5 cities.
Yeah.
Very local. 5 cities.
Very local. I mean, so local that we could probably throw a rock from here.
Kirk Cousins could throw a football from here and hit that building.
You're probably right.
Maybe. In the best conditions.
On a bounce. He'd get very close. But yeah, we've had some 5 cities. Good stuff. And I was just there actually a few times. It is kind of the place to meet.
There you go.
For people in my age and stage of life. So yeah, been there a few times, and they've actually expanded too. They've got a spot over in LeClaire,
close to Peachtree, or not Peachtree, Green Tree. There it is.
Yep. So yeah, good stuff.
Yeah,
and we've had some business meetings over it,
and we'll have
cities.
More. Yeah, 5 cities may be like the first unofficially official home of the Skol hop.
Yeah. So we definitely have a booth over there.
Yeah, we do.
We both have kind of some go-to beers and
a couple of go-to food orders for the place next door.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we like that place.
It's good stuff. Good stuff. And it's nice to know that you can just go to a place and kind of hunker down and you can be there for a while.
Yeah.
And all is good.
Everybody knows your name. There's a Cheers reference.
I knew the reference. I don't think they know my name, but they definitely know the beer that I want.
Yeah, not yet. I will say the Hy-Vee that we get our beer at, they're starting to know my name.
Yeah,
so,
well, they know me too.
Yeah.
And they know what I like.
Yeah, and that's good. That's more of a testament on how good Hy-Vee is rather than how beer crazed you and I are. Right? I'll go with that.
Yes.
So yeah, if you're keeping track, that was our first list of breweries we want to hit up as the Skol Hop. Right? Sound like a good list?
Yeah. I think maybe a project that I can work on is a map.
Yeah.
And we'll kind of chart out a course for the summer. And who knows, maybe a few months from now, if you're tuning into the Skol Hop, you'll catch us on a little road trip across the state, and we'll document our trip through various means. Maybe some TikToks, maybe some YouTube videos, maybe a full podcast episode where we're just on the road and checking out these different breweries.
Yeah, I like that. Also, an on-air production meeting, listeners, at some point this off season, we will be brewing and enjoying the Skol Hop beer. That is going to happen. That is a promise before kickoff of week 1 of 2024. That's Austin promise. Again, well, Forrest, if you're listening, please let me know.
And Forrest, friend of the show, he's got the experience.
He will be the master brewer of the Skol Hop. That's already a given.
Which is a little ironic because he's a Bears fan, but that's okay.
He is a Bears fan, but he is a Skol Hop fan.
Hopefully he doesn't poison the beer.
Yeah, I think he respects beer too much to do that. Okay. And then he likes us, so he won't do that.
That's fair.
But mostly he respects beer too much to do that. He's also a big college guy, so when we have like our draft episode, he may be featured on that episode as well.
There's a couple of Michigan running backs that could be pickups.
And a guy who plays the most important position of football may be a high-ish pick into the NFL, not necessarily the Vikings, but yeah.
I'm at this point more interested in their running backs than their quarterback. Yeah. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, that's true. But you know my motto on on running backs.
Don't pay them.
Don't pay them. So what do you have to do to get a good one? Draft them. And then let somebody else pay them.
That's what I've been saying.
Yep.
Draft one of those Michigan kids.
I'd be on board.
They lit up that national championship.
Yeah, they did.
J.J. McCarthy didn't have to do anything. He just dropped back.
I'd say he didn't have to do
He didn't have to do much.
Yes.
He didn't have to do much.
Yeah. He still had to play good. I mean,
he played okay.
Yeah. But that's a topic for another time.
It is a topic for another time. We've got a to-do list here.
Yep.
We will put together a little tour, and we'll plan that out. It'll be fun. I would say, too, we also have some plans to hopefully go to at least one, possibly more, games next season.
Yes. Yeah. I don't know. There's something, I'm not sure if I think I texted you about it. There's something maybe in the works a little bit. I think I've texted you about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, at least one, if not 2-ish, maybe. I don't know. But maybe even another, if we don't physically attend a game, we might attend another event that has to do with watching a Vikings game.
Yeah. We've talked about that as well.
And super current, we may have a guest on next week's show.
Not may. We will. We will have a guest.
I mean, you always leave it open just in case something crazy happens.
Yeah.
But
well, at this point in time, as of the recording of this episode, the plan is we will have a guest that's been on the show before.
So you have 2 guesses.
You have a 50-50 shot. And we'll see if you're right.
Yeah, and you will never know if you're right until you maybe even read the description of next week's episode.
Well, what did you think of the West O smoked red ale?
I like it, and I'm going to say something I may have already said in the past. IPAs are my number one by a mile. I'm an IPA guy. I recognize not everybody is, and that's okay. you have made sure you have turned me into reds and ambers being my number 2. So
I'm happy to help you in any way that I can.
I appreciate it. Yeah. Thank you very much. I liked it a lot. Westo, you did a great job on the, what's this one called?
Smoked Red.
Smoked Red. Yeah, like I said earlier, that's a good description of this beer. Yeah. It's really good. I like it a lot. Yeah. What do you think?
I now that I've had more of it and have been able to kind of savor the sips a little bit, I can taste the smokiness. I can definitely taste that roasted malt and the smoked cherry wood malt that's in there. So it's really good. It's complex. It's a little more interesting, I would say, than some of the other reds and ambers that we've had. Not to downplay any of those other ones, but this is good, and I like this. And there were a few other Westos on the shelf that I'm like, yeah, we're gonna have to try those out too, and maybe they make this list next year when we do something like this.
Oh yeah,
so
absolutely. And maybe it's the name that's influencing me a little bit, but I'm just picturing how good this would taste on like an October or November evening, next to a good bonfire.
Lakeside.
Yeah. This is a solid beer, and I enjoyed it a lot. Thank you for bringing it to the episode.
Yeah, good stuff. All right, well, if you're out there listening or watching, give us a like, give us a follow, give us a rating. If you're on Spotify or Apple Podcast, give us a rating, drop a comment on the rating, let us know how we're doing. We always appreciate the feedback, and if you know somebody out there that's a Vikings fan or a beer lover, we would love it if you would share that with them.
Yeah.
Share a link to either this episode or the podcast in general. That would make us super excited.
Yeah. I'll even go a little bit farther. If you are listening and you have some kind of a connection with any of the breweries we talked about today, or really any Iowa brewery, we'd love to visit. We'd love to go, and we're not even really looking like, hey, be our sponsor, give us a bunch of beer. We like Iowa beer, and we'd love to visit. There was couple of breweries that have interacted with us back and forth on social media a little bit, and that's super awesome. We had one, little bit of an opportunity to kind of interact in person with a brewery, but scheduling it didn't work out. But even that was super cool. We'd love that. So if you have any kind of an in with anywhere, big or small or whatever, we'd love to chat and maybe visit and at least record a TikTok or something. Definitely try the beer for sure.
Oh yeah, we would love that. It'd be a lot of fun, and we like good Iowa beer.
Yeah,
and that's something we're excited about on this podcast, and we'll continue to be excited about for sure.
Absolutely.
So, all right, well, let's wrap this up here today, because we've been going for a while now.
Yeah, I like this episode. Hopefully it's as good as it felt.
This was a good one. I agree. Yeah. But we left some on the table, and we can come back to that next time too, which is always a good feeling to have more to talk about.
For sure.
So we'll wrap it up here. We'll finish these up, and we'll get this episode out to you. But as always,
until next time. Skol.
Skol.
Hey Vikings fans, Evan here from the Skol Hop, and we just wanted to say thank you again so much for listening to the Skol Hop, and we also wanted to take one more opportunity to let you know that this episode of the Skol Hop has been brought to you by Big Top Ventures. If you're considering taking an all-inclusive trip to either Mexico or Jamaica, reach out to our friends at Big Top Ventures at bigtopventuresllc@gmail.com. Once again, that's bigtopventuresllc@gmail.com. You can get the lowest rate possible on several all-inclusive resorts throughout the region. Big Top Ventures, step right up to your next big adventure. And thanks again for listening to the Skol Hop. Skol.